Welcome to the Show Day podcast for July 9th, 2019. Last night, July 8th, marked 1 month until BCI World Championship prelims. Two shows took place last night, one in Georgia and one in Washington. I'll get to recaps of those, plus a look ahead at tonight's lineup of shows. We have 4 shows, but they're not lengthy lineups. So, that plus more today on the Show Day podcast. Last night, first show is Drums Across America in Valdosta, Georgia. On the open class side of things, we had 3 corps making their season debuts competitively. Southwind Louisiana Stars Heatwave. Really, we knew Heatwave would probably be third. We did not know how those first two would really line up, though. Southwind, they take over the Louisiana Stars. Louisiana Stars have been ahead of Southwind in prior years. Southwind comes out very well prepared, as you can see by their final numbers I'll show in a minute. General effect, they're up by 1.2. In the visual caption, Louisiana Stars do win visual proficiency, but Southwind wins the other 2 sub-captions. Southwind wins overall visual, but it's a pretty small margin. Their wins over Louisiana Stars aren't gigantic. It's a 17.05 to a 16.8, and then Heatwave down in third with a 14.6. In music, you have really the Louisiana Stars' strong point and more of Southwind's, I'm not going to say weak point because I haven't seen either of these shows yet, but I'd say Louisiana Stars are stronger, obviously, by what you see here. All ones for Louisiana Stars, 11-2 to a 10-9 in brass, an 11-3 to an 11 even in analysis, and a 12 even to an 11-7 in percussion. That all translates out to, again, not a huge victory for the winning corps in the caption, Louisiana Stars in music, a 17.25 to a 16.8 for Southwind. Looking overall at the total scores for these 2 corps, you've got a 58.85, just below 59 for Southwind, and a 57.85, just below 58. So basically think of these scores as 59 and 58, and then think of Heatwave 49.50, somewhere in there. The scores Southwind and Louisiana Stars put up last night are very good, and they might be a little inflated, maybe just due to the fact of there not being any real middle core between Heatwave and that second core to go on. But it still seems like those scores are good for these 2 corps, Southwind and Louisiana Stars, thinking of what they've been putting up in the past few years, I guess you could say, and really being just 2-3 points off of course like Legends, Spartans, ahead of course like 7th Regiment that have been in their playing field. So open class, it's going to be one of the biggest things to watch this year, is the battle for really anything in open class. You can look at the finalist battle, 14 corps for 12 spots. You can look at the medalist battle. You can even go up to the world champion in open class, the open class champion battle. That's going to be insane as well. In world class at this Drums Across America show, same 5 corps that have been in the southeast of the U.S. Take away Boston. They're rehearsing. So you've got these 5. Crown, unsurprisingly, all ones. Phantom, we're really starting to see them pull away from Spirit. We're seeing them figure out things that I'll talk about in a minute going across this. Spirit, they've kind of hit a wall. They can't get past 73, and they got up to a 73.7 at this show, and they can't really get past it. And if it's anything like we saw with the Mandarins, they'll just shoot up all of a sudden, but it just seems as though they've kind of fell off of their strongest point, which was where they first debuted, and they were ahead of Phantom for a few shows. Music City, they've not separated themselves from Jersey Surf, but they've increased the margin just a little bit. So, in general effect, Crown, 32.8 to a 30.3 for Phantom, and a 29.7 for Spirit. That's 6/10 between Phantom and Spirit. Not necessarily what I think Spirit is looking for in these scores. Between Music City and Jersey Surf, in general effect, you've got a 27-2 for Music City and 9/10 back to Jersey Surf at a 26-3. Heading over to visual, really no surprises here either. Nobody really switching positions, just goes as is. Crown at a 24-4, 22-1-5 for Phantom, a 21-7 for Spirit, a 19-9-5 for Music City, and a 19-4-5 for Jersey Surf. So Jersey Surf does narrow the gap a little bit in visual, but still does not make up for that general effect deficit. And then in music, you've got everybody, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So really the big thing that is shown from this show is Spirit has been kind of passing Phantom in random things, like visual proficiency one night, or music analysis. I'm just throwing random things out there, but we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing more of Phantom's just ahead. And it's not by a lot in some things. I mean, a tenth in brass, 4/10 in percussion. It's not huge, but they're still getting ahead of Spirit. So when we look at overall scores at this show, you've got Crown just below an 82. I think that's fine for them, but I don't know how close Crown is to, let's say, the Bluecoats. Let's say maybe even Boston. Is Boston ahead of them? Really, we have no idea where Crown fits in right now. They haven't been going against anybody except for that one night with Boston. Then their second head-to-head matchup got rained out. So now Crown's off for the rest of the week until Saturday. So I'm sure they'll incorporate some new things in that show, get their score higher. Phantom at a 75.3. Good score for them once again, but they're again hitting this wall between 74 and 75 and can't get to that 76. It's now been 3 or 4 shows where they've been stuck in this area. Spirit, same thing. It's been between basically a 73 for a few shows. They gotta get that up tonight. Music City at a 67.85 and Surf at a 65.65. The second show last night, Drums Along the Columbia in Tri-Cities, Washington. Same lineup we've been seeing, adding Pacific Crest on the world class side, and that actually made things very interesting. Open class, though, nothing huge here. The Battalion, again, basically sweeping almost all the captions, especially in general effect and visual. You've got them 5/10 ahead of the Colombians in general effect, and you've got them little less than 2 points, 1.7 ahead in visual. In music, you've got, again, the Battalion almost sweeping everything. Analysis, the Colombians do win, but it's only by a tenth. 16-8 for the Battalion in music, 16-4-5 for the Colombians. It definitely seems as though this is these... I'm not going to go too far in saying this is the Colombian strongest show, but it sure seems like the Battalion's strongest show in their history. It's only been a few years they've been a core, but 57-3 really is where they've been at the end of the season. So now to be at that point with still a week or two left in your tour, it sure seems like it's a good season for them. On the world class recap, I did say Pacific Crest joined in, and it made things interesting. Not too much in general effect and visual, but the gaps close a little bit in music, so I'll get to that. But at the top, Blue Devils, again, all ones. Blue Knights, again, all twos. Pacific Crest actually wins each subcaption and, of course, overall caption then, in general effect and visual, against the Troopers. The big thing to look for here was, would Pacific Crest defeat the Troopers? And the reason we were looking for that is because the Troopers not necessarily are struggling, but the show design's not as strong this year as it has been. And Pacific Crest, many have said, including myself, that this is one of their strongest shows of all time. Last season was very, very good, and then this season they're just capitalizing on the success they built last season and they've got a really well-designed show this season. If the members can execute on it, which they are, it definitely means good things for the Corps. As I was saying, Pacific Crest ahead of the Troopers, and then you go down to 5th and 6th with Genesis and Seattle Cascades. Again, Genesis ahead of Seattle Cascades and everything on these two captions. Though over in the music caption here, some things do mix up down at the bottom. But the first thing I want to point out is the Blue Devils and Blue Knights, particularly in percussion. 4/10 between the Blue Knights and Blue Devils there. Not a huge margin for a Corps that could be placing as high as 1st and a Corps that could be placing as low as 9th or 10th. Really, that is an interesting margin at this one, and then that also contributes to the overall music score. It's a point between the Blue Devils and Blue Knights in brass and analysis, but when we look at overall music, 24/7 for the Blue Devils, a 23/5 for the Blue Knights. Definitely percussion and music seems to be the Blue Knights' stronghold this season. Looking down the line here, you've got Troopers ahead of Pacific Crest in all the sub-captions here. So after Pacific Crest defeats Troopers in general effect and visual and everything, now Troopers come back in music. They narrow it down to 3/10 on the overall scoreboard, 68.95 to a 68.65 for the Troopers. And then Genesis and Seattle Cascades. Cascades do beat Genesis percussion by 6/10. They do not win overall music over Genesis. But overall total, you've got Genesis at a 62.6, and then Seattle Cascades at a 59.85. So Seattle Cascades still got work to do, but it seems like both them and Genesis seem to start coming in right now. So now looking at the world-class leaderboard, after all of that, what does it mean going up against each other pretty much? When you look at the scores like the Blue Devils against Carolina Crown, when you look at these scores like Pacific Crest against scores that were put up by Music City last night, or scores that were put up by Madison and the Academy in the previous few days. The Bluecoats still remain at the top, and that score comes from Sunday night in Menominee against Vanguard. So Bluecoats and Vanguard scores are from Sunday. Blue Devils sneak in here, and they're just ahead of Vanguard. Keep in mind, though, that the Blue Devils are going against nobody in their competitive area. None of these I'll go as far to say top 7, because the Blue Knights are 8th. I'll go as far to say there's not any top 7 course at those shows except the Blue Devils. So I'm not sure how much we can look into those scores, but still it's something worth noting. The other big thing is Carolina Crown at an 81.9. That score is somewhat not high. Just below an 82. It's a very high score for right now, like looking at everybody. But when we're looking against Vanguard and the Blue Devils and Bluecoats, is Crown really that close to them, or are they still behind? And right now I'm going to say they're still behind. We see Crown against Vanguard, though, in Memphis on Saturday. You see here, that's Crown's next show. So I'm sure they'll add more things in. This is the third of basically 3 weeks off that Crown has. So we'll just have to see what they come out with on Saturday. A lot of cores in action tonight, but there's not really huge shows, and I'll get to that in a second when I look at the overall schedules for tonight. Keep in mind the finalist bubble as well. Fandom now 1.6 ahead of Spirit after last night's show. On the open class side of things, Blue Devils B still has the highest score of tour so far. On the open class side, 63.45. They're back in action in Bakersfield. On Friday night, same with Vanguard Cadets at a 61.05. Of course, those two, though, are not going to World Championships in August. So you have to look at the Spartans, Legends, Southwind, Louisiana Stars, River City Rhythm, 7th Regiment, that big group right in there between a 60.9, and that Spartan score was put up about a week ago. And looking at cores like the Legends in Southwind, who have just put up scores in in the past few days. Really, you can say the same about Louisiana Stars and River City Rhythm as well. They fit into that recent score area. And 7th Regiment, their last score was last Tuesday, a week ago at MetLife. So they're probably ahead of River City Rhythm and ahead of Louisiana Stars, and maybe even ahead of Southwind. I'm not sure how much you can see in that. See, if it was just that, I wouldn't look too much into it. But since Southwind's score was so high and Louisiana Stars so close to the Legends score from Sunday, that's why I'm looking a lot into those two core scores last night. The other open class score that made their debut last night was Heatwave. They go right ahead of, or right in the middle of, the Raiders and Encore, but those two cores' last score was last Tuesday, so Heatwave might be just above Blue Devils C or just above the Watchmen right now. We still have 3 open class scores to debut. You've got Shadow on Friday in Dubuque. You've got the Guardians in Memphis on Saturday, and you've also got the Lace Centaurs debuting in Augusta, New Jersey on July 17th. That's the only note I want to make on here as well is I have not been counting the Lace Centaurs in on this because I had not realized that they had been approved or whatever to be back on tour this year, but apparently they have been. So they will be actually heading to World Championships as well come August. So of course, the more cores, the better, and having an international presence at World Championships also is always a great thing. Looking ahead to tonight, we've got 4 shows, not huge lineups, not a ton of things to look for, but we've still got 4 shows. So, first show, Drums Along the Rockies in Eagle, Idaho. 6:45, Welcome to National Anthem, all times here are Mountain Time, by the way. 6:55, 7:10, step-off times for the Battalion and Columbian, same 2 open class scores. And then we've got those same 6 world class scores from last night in the Tri-Cities. You've got the Seattle Cascades, Genesis, Pacific Crest, Blue Knights, Blue Devils, and Troopers go on last because this is their home show. 9:22 Encore, 9:47 scores are announced. The big thing here, Troopers versus Pacific Crest once again, and how high can the Blue Devils and Blue Knights get in their respective scoring areas. Second show, the Thunder of Drums in Mankato, Minnesota. 6:45 Central Time is a sound sports performance by Minnesota Brass from St. Paul, Minnesota. 6:55, the Blue Stars are doing a clinic at this event with, I'm assuming, high school students and Blue Stars clinic participants. They perform at 6:55 right before the Welcome National Anthem. And then after that is CHOP Sound Sport Group and then the Governor's all-age class performance. 7:28, our only open class score at this one, River City Rhythm from Anoka, Minnesota. 7:44 intermission, and then we've got 5 world class scores lined up here. The Madison Scouts, the Academy, Colts, Blue Stars, and the Bluecoats. 9:29 encore, and then scores will be announced shortly after. Big thing to look for here, Colts versus the Academy versus Madison once again, and also how far can the Bluecoats get? 85, maybe even 86. I don't think they're there yet, though. Third show, DCI Morningside, Sioux City, Iowa, 7:30 p.m. Welcome to National Anthem. Only 4 cores here. I believe this is going to be a partial panel. I still think there's going to be judges at this event, but to my best judgment, I'm going to say there's going to be a partial panel of judges at this show. So you've got 1 open class score in the Colt Cadets, and then 3 world class scores, Crossmen, Mandarins, and the Cadets, and the 9 o'clock scores are announced. This show is competitively very, very interesting. The Cadets will probably win, most definitely will win, but the Mandarins, how close can they get up to the Cadets? Or even, can the Mandarins get past the Crossmen, or are the Crossmen still ahead? The Mandarins are the big one here because I don't know where they fit in with the Crossmen and the Cadets right now. They've been on the West Coast with basically nobody except the Blue Knights in their area, so I don't know where they're going to fit in tonight with these two. And the final show, again, Drums Across America Part 2 in Houston, Georgia. Spirit of Atlanta hosts once again. You've got those same three open class scores in Heatwave, Southwind, and Louisiana Stars. And then four world class scores take away Crown out of this lineup, and you've got Jersey Surf, Music City, Phantom Regiment, and Spirit of Atlanta. Again, and Spirit close on Phantom. That's the big thing to look for here. So the question of the day, I'm bringing back this segment now because really stuff is starting to ramp up. And the question today is, which corps is the championship favorite currently? Is it the Blue Coats? Is it maybe even Vanguard? Is it the Blue Devils? Who is it right now? Leave your response in the comments section or tag me on Twitter at DrumCorpsGeek. I'd love to hear all of your opinions on this topic. So thanks for watching today. Just a few things. Make sure to visit my website, drumcorpscentral.weebly.com, for all the latest updates from the DCI and DCA summer tours, scores, schedules, leaderboards, and more can all be found at my own personal website about all things drum corps. Make sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at DrumCorpsGeek, and subscribe to the Show Day podcast on YouTube, where this podcast and more will be posted. Finally, leave your thoughts in the comment sections. Questions, input, comments, etc. would all be greatly appreciated. So thank you for watching this Tuesday. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll be back tomorrow.